Good morning. So we're talking about the power of our voices, the concept of saying what you need to say, to be heard, and to have our own unique voices put out there in the world. What spoke to this for me was actually the first part of the Lord's Prayer. So I know we know it backwards and forwards, but it's such an ancient, beautiful prayer that just covers so many places. So we all know it, but it's Our Father, which art in heaven within. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. This is an amazing and it's an affirmative prayer, and as it says, thy kingdom come, like the kingdom is always expanding. And Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is in the midst of us. It is in the midst of you, and it is the expansion of consciousness. So this is a prayer about the expansion of consciousness, to align our will with spirit so that on earth, in the outer, in the manifested realm, may it match, may it reflect my inner life and my inner world. And collectively, may the earth begin to reflect the rich inner world of our inner beauty and our inner goodness. I think that in life, we are in a process of constantly aligning our inner world with our outer world, yeah? So we have this rich inner life, and the interesting thing about it is because we live in 3 dimensions, because we live in this thing called time, you could have this great awakening or change in consciousness, but it may not necessarily show up right away, right? Because what we're experiencing in our life right now is the culmination of the consciousness that we've had up to this point. And it takes time when we make a change, when we have a shift in our inner life, it takes time for that shift to manifest in the outer realm. Again, because we live in this dimension that has time in it. When we change inside, things in the outside may not necessarily fit anymore. So we may have to adjust a relationship. We may have to change jobs or our home. Sometimes it means we change our style or our clothes, and you know, we just kind of shift things up. You know, some people move their furniture around, some people move from city to city or from place to place. And it is reflected, I think whenever we make some kind of a change like that, it is reflecting that inner change that's within us. And also, I think if we make some major changes in the outer, they also affect us on the inner. So I recently redid a room in my basement. It's a day basement. And it was a TV room where we just hung out. It was kind of a rec room, but it was never finished. It had, I don't know, just not good walls and leaky windows and not very good. So I went in and I thought about it, and I thought, in the house, which room would I like to transform the most? And I thought, you know, if I ever sell it, I'm going to have to fix that room anyway, so I might as well fix it while I live there and get to enjoy it. So I hired someone, put in new floors, new walls, new ceiling, new lights, new windows, whole 9 yards. I got bookcases from IKEA and a desk, and I turned it and transformed this room into this amazingly beautiful office and writing room. It is gorgeous, and it feels like a sanctuary. And when I walk in, it's like, oh my God, is this really for me? Is this mine? And some friends of mine came to visit, and I was showing them around, and they looked around and they said, you know what you did, don't you? And I said, what? And they said, you took something in the outer so that it would match your inner world and your inner life. So you made this change and you made this shift. Good for you. But you know what? It's not so easy to do that, is it? I mean, you know, the cost, the chaos, the time that it takes, and of course, I always think it's going to cost one thing, and then it's like more Home Depot, more whatever, and ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. The price keeps going up and up and up. So so when we are seeking to change the outer to match our inner, it's not necessarily seamless, although sometimes it is, but it usually calls for us to step out and to be seen in a different way than we are used to doing. Now, the truth is that in order to hear the outer voice, in order to express our opinions and to be seen and to be heard, we need to listen to the inner voice so that when we're speaking clearly. I love one thing that Scott Peck always said. He said that the subconscious mind is always ahead of the conscious mind, and that if we take the time to listen to the still small voice, to listen to our dreams and to watch them at night, or just to tune into what our feelings are, we will receive guidance for the next steps that we need to take in life. And I have found this to be accurate over and over and over. I've been studying this in my own life for like 30 years. And I know that when I have a dream, it's my guidance showing me the way. Your voice and your perspective is unique to you. One of the things that I think is amazing about our voices is that they don't really change all that much through the course of our lives. You know, and we can see this like if you watch an old movie from the 40s and you see Henry Fonda when he's young, and then you see Henry Fonda when he's old, you know it's Henry Fonda because you recognize the voice, even though he may look different, or Jimmy Stewart, or, you know, there's a number of actors, and I think it's one of the gifts of being able to see movies and audio clips from years and years ago, hear audio clips from years and years ago, is that we can see that change. A friend of mine just went to Denver and saw a friend of hers that she hasn't seen in 30 or 40 years. She says, Karen, I wouldn't have recognized him in a million years. He looked so different, but his voice was exactly the same, and I knew it was him. You know, it's our voice and our eyes that don't really change. When my mother died, all these people came to her funeral and her wake, people I hadn't seen since I lived in an old neighborhood, you know, in the 70s, and they'd come up to me and they'd say, hi, Karen, how are you? And I'd say, hi, you know, and then you're trying to go, okay, who's this? And then I finally got to the point where I would just go nose to nose with people and stare them right in the eye and go, oh my God, it's you, you know? I recognize you, you're my cousin, I haven't seen you in 40 years, oh my gosh. But the voice too, the voice stays the same, and the eyes stays the same, and there's this essence of us that doesn't change, and yet it changes all the time. We find our voice when we're babies, when we make all the different sounds, and toddlers, you know, what's the first word that toddlers begin to say is no, no, no. They set their boundaries. You know, perhaps you weren't given a voice as a child, perhaps you were silenced, and you had to find that voice as you went along in your life and realized that you have something important to say. When I was a kid, I literally was silent. I know you've probably heard this before, but I was silent. I just didn't speak at all, hardly at all. One time I was actually in a car with a neighbor. I was like 7 or 8, and I had my hand in the window of the driver, and he rolled it up, and my hand was in there, and I didn't say a word because I didn't speak, and he kept going, what's wrong with this? And I'm like, nothing, it's me. I've overcome that, obviously. No. Anyway, I really honestly feel like I found my voice by going to Wrigley Field and just booing and yelling and cheering, you know, that's where my voice started to come in. When those of you who are writers, you know, one of the keys in writing a story or finding that is to find your writer's voice. Natalie Goldberg always says, find your writer's voice. Just start writing and see what comes out. One of my favorite books is Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. Is that a great book? And he said that the book came out of him when he found his writer's voice. And the writer's voice for him was a 3-year-old. You know, he said he saw himself standing like in a playground looking around, and he said, I'm 3. And all of a sudden, Angela's Ashes came pouring out of him, this amazing story about growing up in Ireland. It's one of the best stories I've ever read. We also have various voices, I think, that play out in our heads all the time. We have the voice of the lover. We have the voice of the friend. We have the voice of the leader. And we also have the voice of the whiny victim, yeah? And so what's interesting to me is that these voices, I mean, I think it's great to give voice to all of them. And I think mental and spiritual health is the ability to let them all be and not let one take over. Because have you ever let a victim voice take over, or know someone who has let a victim voice take over? And when we begin to react and see life from that place, it starts to line up to make it look like this is reality. Because we know that our thoughts and our words and our actions are what bring the world into manifestation on earth as it is in heaven. Our true inner voice really is the voice of spirit. That's the true voice, the one that is the voice of goodness, the one of empowerment, that you are a child of God. It makes me think of the line from the movie The Help. Remember, I don't know how many of you saw the movie where there was this little girl who was being abused by her mom, and the maid would come in and hold her and say to this beautiful baby girl, she'd say, "You is kind, and you is smart, and you is important." And she'd say it over and over, and she goes, "And what did I tell you? You are kind, you are special, you are important." Because we know that our words have the power to heal or to destroy. Our words have the power to build up or to tear down. Jesus demonstrated it when he walked over to a fig tree. I guess it didn't have any figs on it because it wasn't in season. It wasn't the fig tree's fault. But he just cursed the tree and said, "You will never grow fruit again." And it withered up and died. And I think he did that because his words were so powerful and he was able to heal through his words. He was also showing that we also can destroy through our words. Silence is the way that we empower our words. How many of you have gone away on a silent retreat, Vipassana or otherwise? And have you not found after, I've only done a couple days, but I know there's 3 and 10 and 30. And what I noticed when I have gone on silent retreats, particularly in community, it's one thing to do it when you're alone because there's nobody to talk to. But when you're in a community and you're practicing silence, I notice how much energy I spend just going blah-de, 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 blah, just kind of just talking. And it's an energy leak, at least it is for me. And by keeping silence, by meditating, by listening, our voices become more in line with that inner world. Now, mantras are a very powerful way to use the voice and to use sound. Particularly, Sanskrit mantras are thousands of years old, and they are said to contain the God seed in them, like the word Om. The word Om is the name of God, and it is said that you can hear the word Om, or the sound Om, in everything in creation. It is a way when we chant, when we sing together, it is a way that we're able to connect our voices in community and we're able to hear each other. So I think it's great that we are having the singing at London Bridges Studio on August 20th, because it's a way to come together and have our voice held in community. And it doesn't matter if you're a great singer or a professional singer or a not so good singer. It's that coming together in voice. We begin to see the collective movement. So I actually would like for us to sit with a couple of ohms, not sit with, but chant a couple of ohms. Now, it's a very powerful word, it's a very powerful chant, and you can feel the vibration moving through the body. And it's particularly powerful when it's done in community, in group. So I invite you to sit up straight. And the way we do this, and I know many of you know, you're all veterans at this, is to take a real deep breath from inhaling through the abdomen and inhaling through the lungs and really filling the body with breath so that when we exhale out the Om, it's one long chant. We're going to do it 6 times, and if you feel like just not waiting for me to start and stop, but to go on your own, I invite you to do that. And I invite you to hear yourself and then to hear the collective voice. So, deep breath. As we owned together, it was as if we were breathing together, and we were breathing as one. That voice and that sound in community is very powerful. Our voices and sound has the ability to heal. I have done house blessings at different times, and using bowls, singing bowls and bells and the sound of the voice is a great way to bring harmony to a home, to sing. And we have that opportunity every Wednesday here with Sada and the gong. So your voice is a unique expression of who you are. And you have something to say. And it's important that we speak our truth. One of the ways that we have a collective voice in community is through the process of voting. An election day here in Washington is on Tuesday. And we are very lucky in Washington because we have a great system. We have mail-in ballots where we can take our time, fill it out at our leisure, talk to our friends, research the different candidates, research the issues on the web so that we can be fully informed. And I think that is a great blessing that we have being in this state of Washington. And it is a way that our collective voice can begin to change the outer world. So what is it you believe? What is it you want to see manifested in the world? We do it through that collective voice. You'll notice that in the bulletin I have put a portion of the Declaration of Independence there. Now, we talked about the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, particularly we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We all know that part. But the truth is, I don't know how many of us actually know what the rest of that paragraph says. And that's why I put the rest of the paragraph in here. Particularly, governments are instituted among men and women, but governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. They get their powers from the consent of the governed. That is you and I. And we have a voice, and it is our responsibility to use the voice that we have been given. And the rest of it also is that if the government doesn't work, hey, guess what? We get to change it. And I know that sometimes we may fall into that victim voice I hear it frequently, whether it's on television or just in conversations. I hear this voice, well, there's not really anything we can do. You know, I mean, the system seems to be the system. And yet, we are given that right in our Declaration of Independence. It's a beautiful and a wonderful thing. So I encourage you to vote on Tuesday. So the Lord's Prayer is a powerful ancient prayer that is 2,000 years old. Jesus speaks to the kingdom of God within. The kingdom of God is in the midst of you. It is the expansion of consciousness, which is happening all the time. And my prayer this week is that may the earth reflect our deep inner world of beauty and goodness. Maybe it's going to shake up to get that to manifest totally, but we're putting that out there. It is not easy to shift things. Let us take the opportunity to be in silence. As Scott Peck said, the subconscious is always a little ahead of the conscious mind to hear the voice of spirit and guidance. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And it is done through our voice, individually and collectively. Amen.